There is a place, there is a moment, there is a feeling, an escape from your ordinary way. There is a place, there is a time, there is a reason to make today an extraordinary day. Look what you're missing, look what you're missing. There's a world for you to see, paradise to set you free. Look what you're missing, look what you're missing. Come along, I'll take you there, an adventure we can share. There is a place.
This morning we're off to see a few historic things here in the Sandveld, starting with the famous caves called the Lwym. And this afternoon Sabri's going to take us on a tour of the farm where we will learn exactly how rooibos tea goes from a fairly weed-like looking plant to one of the finest cup of teas you can have.
But before we get our day going today, Sabri has brought us down here to what's known as the canyon so we can warm up a little bit, because today's when it starts. Small bits at first, but by later this afternoon we'll probably be riding long stretches of it. And that's the sand monster in one of its various guises.
On this trip we'll probably get to ride the easiest form of sand riding, which is basically just dirt roads with the entire surface of the road covered in sand, often with tracks already formed in the sand by motor vehicles.
Now, riders that will tell you that sand is their favorite surface to ride on are probably in the minority, and I am definitely not one of them. And for me it's a mental thing, it always has been. So from day one I've got it in my mind to call it the sand fairy as opposed to the sand monster. It was just one of my ways of overcoming my fear of it. But even today, after tens of thousands of kilometers, I wouldn't say I'm anywhere closer to completely mastering it. But I do get by using the following basic techniques. And please just remember that once again, the information we give you is really just aimed at giving you some general knowledge. It can never replace what you learn from a qualified off-road instructor. So if you need to or want to learn to ride these different terrains properly, do yourself a favor, go and do a course.
Firstly, make sure your tyre pressures are down somewhat. And remember, your tyre does not become wider when you let it down. The tyre footprint in fact becomes longer.
As always, you need to stand up, look up and look ahead. Because in sand you have less traction and stability already, you need to be able to plan even further ahead for changes of direction and speed.
You need to have your body weight towards the rear of the motorcycle in an effort to get the front wheel to float over the sand, and use body weight input to steer through your feet as much as possible.
The guys that can really ride sand will tell you that momentum is going to help you. So you need to choose open flowing lines on the road, and also look for patches of the road that offer a better surface. That'll give you a little chance to recover so you can keep your speed up.
As we mentioned with pebbles, ride easy, loose and neutral on the bike. Don't worry if the bike seems to be moving around beneath you. It'll keep going straight as long as you keep your momentum.
Now, one thing that gets a lot of attention on motocross and enduro bikes, but is often overlooked on big adventure touring bikes, is suspension setup. And suspension setup is actually quite important, especially when you start riding more technical terrain. And sand for me is technical terrain. So let's look at something we filmed when we were lucky enough to spend some time with Denver Biggs from Blinking Bikes in Johannesburg. Now, he came all the way to Cape Town to talk to us about all things suspension.
And something called sag.
And something called sag.
Greetings, I'm Denver Biggs from Blinking Motorcycles, and I'm here to share some hints and tips about suspension with you. Suspension is one of the most important safety features on your motorbike, yet often misunderstood and overlooked. I often wonder how many of those unexplained crashes were just due to bad bike setup. The question I always hear is, why should we have to change anything on the bike? Surely it comes set up from the factory. The answer is simple. All modern day bikes are built to the same spec. That is to an 85 to 90 kilogram rider riding an average ride. We forget that in South Africa, our averages are way higher and faster than the overseas ones, plus our conditions are harsher. Basic bike setup is easier than you think. First you need to take the bike for a ride to warm up the oils and fluids. Then you need a tape measure and a friend because it's a two-man exercise. First you need to measure the total suspension travel. You do this by suspending the bike on a center stand. Then you measure the distance from a point on the bike to the axle on the rear. We'll call this A. Then you need to determine the static sag. For this, you take the bike off the stand using the bike's weight to compress the shocks. We'll call this measurement B. Here's an important tip. Make sure that you bounce the bike first to settle the shocks. What you're looking for here is 5 to 15% of the total suspension travel on the rear and 20 to 35% on the front. Wait, we aren't finished yet. We still have to measure how your body weight affects the bike. This is called dynamic sag or measurement C. Sit on the bike with your hands on the handlebars and feet on the pegs. This is when your buddy takes the measurement with you on the bike. Another tip, you should always be dressed in full battle dress to create the same riding weight. The measurement that you're looking for should be 25 to 40% of the total travel on the rear and 30 to 35% on the front. Now that we have the sag settings correct, let's touch on rebound settings. Typically, there's an adjustment screw at the bottom of the shock which you adjust. This controls the comfort and road handling of your bike. Remember to only adjust these settings by small increments. One more tip, on a bike with telescopic forks such as an F800 GS, one of the best upgrades you can do is fitting a set of progressive springs with the correct grade fork oil. When adjusting your suspension, always refer to your rider manual, or even better, consult a suspension specialist. You have a great ride out there.
So we are about 25 kilometers from Graawater at the moment, and up there is a cave known as the Lwym. Now the name will tell you that it was a lodge used for gentlemen traveling through this area. And in fact the cave has been used for shelter from as far back as 1682.
It was then that Berg, an official of the VOC and his men, sent by Commander Simon van der Stel to investigate the copper deposits to be reported in the area, spend the night here.
Now his route differed from the other early explorers in that where they mostly followed the Olifants River for the water, he came more west. And not only did he discover this cave, there's also a fountain nearby named after him. And for decades after that, this cave was used by many famous explorers who were going north. In fact, in 1685, Governor Simon van der Stel himself spent a night here while he was on his way to open a mine in the Copper Mountains.
For over 3 centuries, visitors to the cave like Governor Hendrik Swellengriebel, the French natural scientist Francois Levaillant, and expedition leader ensign I.J. Rennes, and many more engraved their names on the cave walls. And near the cave is a rice-type blockhouse. This is a corrugated iron structure designed by a member of the British Engineers Corps and was used during the Anglo-Boer War to guard the supply lines.
So here's some interesting info. These things were literally shipped out in kit form from England and placed in their hundreds along the supply lines during the Anglo-Boer War. The soldiers simply came along, erected their kit, filled the inside with sandbags to make it bulletproof. Voila! Instant fort.
The great thing about making a travel documentary is that the experiences always exceed the expectations. And our time spent with Sabri and the rest of the De Beer family was just so. Once we left the farm with Sabri, he transformed into a tour guide extraordinaire. And through Sabri, we were lucky enough to meet and spend some time with Gert Oosterwind van Sail. We cannot say enough about how meeting people like Gert enhances your travels. The history and the stories just flow into each other, and it takes some serious willpower to tear yourself away and move on to the next part of the journey. Not even the fact that there was no water in Olofbergse fontein due to the drought could put a damper on the incredible day we experienced. In fact, the little road there just about made up for it. But seeing a dry fountain did put into perspective some recent knowledge we had acquired. In a time where transport was made possible only by animals, water was a pretty important resource, and a dry fountain would have meant much more hardship and challenges for those early travelers.
And now, after an absolutely splendid morning, we are on our way back to Boegeberg, and we literally have the rest of the afternoon to find out a little more about the process that gets you a cup of rooibos tea in your hand.
Die eerste proses wat nou gaan gebeur, en ons gaan dit nou so aan die einde van Februarie gaan ons dit doen, gaan ons die saad saai, want ons maak ons eie plantjies wat dan nou uitgeplant word. En dan hier Junie, Julie, Augustus in die wintermaande, as dit nou gereën het, dan plant ons dit nou uit op die lande. Nou dan is daai plantjie is so 150 mm omtrent nou. Die tee wat ons nou Junie, Julie, Augustus verlede jaar, sinne wat ons nou geplant het in 2015, gaan ons nou vir jaar 2016 hierso in April maand. Dan top ons hom net. Jy sny net die boonste deel van die bos af, dat hy 'n mooi bos vorm. So daai tee word ook gebruik. Ons in die laaste tyd maak ons maar groen tee daarvan. So die tee wat nou vandag gesny is, gaan nou vanaand ingery word tot daar by die stoortjie. Dan pak ons hom nou daar. Die ouens sny ons nou by die stuk. So ons weeg elke bolling en ons sit hom daar môreoggend. Dan word daai tee nou gekerf. Nou ons kerf hom so in 2 tot 3 mm lengte word hy gekerf. Ons kerf 'n kort snit. Jy kry 'n lang snit ook wat dan nou heel wat langer is. Na die kerf, hy word ons nou in daai hoop gegooi soos wat julle nog gesien het. Dan word hy nat gemaak. Nou ons toets hom maar wanneer daar moet genoeg vog wees. Jy vat van die tee en druk hom in jou hand en as jy sien hier kom die water begin kom uit, dan weet jy as genoeg vog en dan trap ons hom in die trekker en ons werk hom in die routewyter werk ons hom maar om. Nou hy moet 'n sekere temperatuur bereik hierso by 38 grade. As hy te koud is, dan het hy te min gesweet, dan gaan jou tee so 'n ligte vaal kleur hê. As hy te lank daar gelê dat hy te warm geraak het, dan gaan hy so donker, dan begin 'n mif hy amper. So dit doen ons afhangende van hoe jou temperature is. As ons sien dit gaan vandag koud wees, dan gaan ons dit 'n bietjie vroeër in die proses sit. Want môreoggend 7 uur as ons begin werk, dan gooi ons hom oop. En dan word hy droog gemaak op daai sement waar ons daai borsel wat ons om die hele tyd borsel en ons sleep goed om hom net 'n bietjie lig te gee. As ons wind het, die wind maak hom nogal lekker vinnig droog. As jy met daai borsel en lekker wind, dan raak hy gou droog. Maar hy moet môre aan droog wees want ons gaan die volgende oggend weer tee opgooi. Oor die algemeen het ons 'n baie goeie kwaliteit tee wat ons hier maak. Jou grondtipe speel natuurlik ook 'n groot rol en ons gronde wat ons hier maak baie goeie tee.
At the end of a day like this, one can understand why it's better to see something once and savor the memory than to hear about it 1,000 times.
So thanks to everyone, and especially Sabri, for helping us make some pretty amazing memories today, because that, after all, is what it's all about. So we're up fairly early this morning because even though we don't have that long a day planned on the bikes, we do want to try and get to our next overnight destination as early as possible, so that we don't only have tomorrow to experience everything that they have to offer.
So the plan for today is claim Lwym for fuel, some supplies and to check out 1 or 2 things of interest. Then it's gravel to more or less the end of the dam. Then we get to ride 3 passes in fairly quick succession before we get up into the plateau that stretches throughout the Cederberg mountain range.
Lwym lies in the middle of what is known as the Olifants River Valley, so named after the explorer Jan Dankert, who claimed he saw a herd of some 300 elephant in the area in around 1660. The village itself started out as Jan Disselsvlei, named after Jan Dissel, a botanist who worked in the region in the late 1700s. And in 1814 the town was renamed Lwym in honour of the Earl of Lwym, the father-in-law of the then Governor of the Cape, Sir John Cradock. Lwym is one of the 10 oldest towns in South Africa, and historical walks through the town centre take in 7 national monuments. That include the original farmhouse of Jan Disselsvlei, the old jail building, now a museum, and an 1820 settler's house. It's also regarded as the only town in the world where rooibos tea is planted and cultivated. It is also famous for its locally made veldskoens manufactured in the Strasburger shoe factory. The best way to get from Lwym into the Cederberg Mountains is to follow the road out of the top of town onto one of the most amazing dirt roads in this area. Because for the most part you'll be riding right next to the Lwym Dam and later the Olifants River. The dam itself was built in the 1930s and the wall was raised by 6 meters in the mid-1960s to increase the capacity to 166.6 million cubic meters. Be sure to be on the lookout along here though. There are many blind corners and oncoming vehicles may also just be admiring the beauty of the dam and its surrounds.
Now today we're in for a real treat as far as riding and vistas are concerned. We take off and we head up the Credo Kloof Pass, which leads us onto the Nieuwoud Pass, which then leads us onto the Uitkyk Pass, the very last one before we get up onto the plateau where our overnight accommodation is situated.
And we're always going on about stopping to admire the view, and this time it's not just because of safety. We're basically riding these passes from west to east, and the fact is the best views are going to be behind you, especially from the top of the Uitkyk Pass. But even before you get there, if you take the time to look around just a little bit, you will experience the magnificence of the Sandveld and many different and absolutely breathtaking views over various parts of the Cederberg mountain range.
You will in fact be able to spot some of the most impressive peaks in the Cederberg on this next stretch of road, with names like Sneeuwberg, Tafelberg, Consolation Peak and the Spout.
The gravel road that starts at the end of the Clan William Dam will eventually take you all the way to Op die Berg, with the last 17 kilometers being tar. The road itself varies in width and surface most of the way, and at times you will be riding next to sheer, unprotected drops down to the valley below. The road surface along here also seems to change throughout the year, and depending on when you visit, you may find yourself negotiating everything from kilometers of clippies, some sandy stretches, and sometimes there are long stretches of corrugations.
Now once again, we couldn't find out too much information on these last three passes, no written history involving the Baines family or anything like that, and strangely enough, not much of a mention in any of the fantastic books you can buy on the Cape's passes. But we do hope to learn a little more tonight, because the Nieuwoud's Pass is named after the Nieuwoud's family, and they settled in the Cederberg over 100 years ago.
The Nieuwoud family in fact owns the Dwarsrivier Wine Farm and the Sundrift Holiday Farm, which is where we are staying for the next night or two. This last bit is called the Uitkyk Pass, named after, well, probably just the view. We've spoken before about how simple our forefathers tried to keep things, so why would it be called anything else? I mean, just look at it, simply magnificent.
The San and Khoi peoples inhabited the Cederberg area from ancient times, creating a rich legacy of rock art. But it was during the mid-1800s that the first members of the Nieuwoud family arrived in the Cederberg, nearly 100 years after they first arrived in South Africa. The Nieuwoud family, originally of Dutch stock, have now lived on the farm Dwarsrivier for 5 generations. They bought the property in around 1835, but only settled on the farm in 1894 and farmed fruit, vegetables and tobacco. In 1963, the first table grapes were planted and proved so successful that the first wine grapes were planted in 1973. The first vintage, a Cabernet Sauvignon, was produced in 1978, and the Cederberg Cellars business has since diversified to produce a range of red and white wines, on which is the highest wine farm in the Cape.
And tucked away on the lush banks of the Maatjies River at the foot of the Wolfberg lies Sundrift. Now this is Dwarsrivier's holiday resort, and from as far back as the 1950s, the Nieuwoud's family started renovating old farm buildings for people looking to overnight in this area. Now this was long before things like mountain biking, hiking and climbing became so extremely popular. So if you think about it, they were showing some serious foresight.
Now today, Sundrift is the ideal base for nature lovers and the adventurers. It's accessible, but it retains that air of remoteness, giving you that real living in the wilderness feeling.
But before we give it our best shot to go and check everything out, we're going to have a chat with 5th generation David Nieuwoud to see what else we can find out about this fascinating place.
Die plaas is van 1893 af al in die Nieuwoud familie.
Okay.
So in die begin het hulle eers met tabak geboer en skape. Toe in die 50 jaar het my oupa met appels en pere begin boer. 72 die eerste wyndrywe gemaak, 77 sy eerste wyn gemaak. Ek dink is eintlik tyd dat ons eers 'n glas wyn skink dalk, jy weet, dit is ook belangrik. En so die fokus maar verander van fisies van vrugte na wyn toe. En vanaf 98 het ons die hele plaas omgeskakel 100% van vrugteproduksie net tot 100% net wyn.
Okay.
En die hoofklem is maar op een van die cultivars wat ons nou hier drink, Shiraz, dis 'n cultivar wat baie goed vaar in die Cederberg, en dan op Sauvignon Blanc. Die plek is dis eintlik die hart van die Cederberg. So alles is in 'n 6 km radius rondom Sundrift gesetel. So die wêreldbekende Wolfbergskere is hier, so die Maltese kruis, die stadsaal grotte, die Bushman tekeninge, hier's 'n sterrewag op die plaas wat Saterdaande oop is. Dit is net toe met volmaan. Die Cereberg het baie gewild geraak, so jy moet definitief tot 3 maande voor die tyd bespreek. Nee, mense moet net onthou, hier's geen selfoonopvangsie, hier's geen petrol en diesel nie, so jy moet alles volmaak voor jy die Cereberg betree. Die Cereberg ons is totaal omring deur Kaapse Natuurbewaring, soos 'n baie groot wildernisgebied. Die plaas is ook 'n kontrak natuurreservaat, so jy mag geen nuwe ontwikkeling plaasvind op Dwarsrivier, alhoewel ons bestaande gronde kan rehabiliteer. Maar dit is die mooiheid van die Cereberg is dat dit nog ongeskonde is en ons probeer dit regtig ongeskonde hou ook. Jy kan alle Kaapse Natuurbewaring permitte kan jy by ons kantoor kry, so Wolfbergskere, Maltese Kruis, Stadsalgrotte, die Maalgat. So alles is beskikbaar vanaf ons wat eintlik baie lekker is.
Between Dwarsrivier and Sandrift, there is definitely something for everyone, whether you're on the adventurous side or just looking to relax in a superb environment. The holiday resort offers accommodation in 16 very comfortable and well-equipped self-catering cottages. There is also camping in a well-shaded and beautifully located campsite. You can see breathtaking views of the famous Wolfberg Cracks from just about anywhere in the resort. As far as activities go, there are various hikes and mountain bike routes that will satisfy just about everyone's adventure lust. In fact, 4 of the best-known one-day hikes in the Cedarburg start on your doorstep when you overnight here. Another very easy 20-minute walk will take you to the Maalgat, where you can either slide into cool waters or, if you're an adrenaline junkie, jump from towering cliffs into the pool. The surrounding cliff faces also offer some of the best rock climbing locations around. On top of that, there is swimming right in front of the campsite in the Mikey's River, bird watching, a very unique observatory, and rock art. At dusk you can wander through the Valley of the Red Gods and watch the sun set the mountains on fire, and later admire the star-studded sky from around the campfire. And this is all on top of being able to savor and purchase some of the finest wines produced in South Africa. It really is a fitting place to round off an incredible journey.
Well, that was just an incredible couple of days, filled to the brim with fun and new experiences.
Unfortunately though, as with all trips I suppose, it's time for us to head home. But we do head home with fantastic memories of 2 amazing places to stay. More than just places in fact, new friends made and loads more information about our country.
And next time out, we're simply going to Sutherland.
But by now you should know, it's never that simple.
Until then,
Ride safe.
look after yourselves.
Look what you missing. Look what you missing. Come along, I'll take you there. An adventure we can share. Look what you missing. Look what you missing. Come along, I'll take you there. An adventure we can share. There is a place, there is a moment, there is a feeling, an escape from your ordinary way.